Hey everybody, welcome back to the basement. This is gonna be the first video on the channel. It's kind of something a little experimental, a little different. Today I'm gonna be showing you what I would call the worst oscillator ever devised. Okay, so basically, the worst oscillator ever devised, or the world's worst oscillator, that's probably a better term, is an old CRT television. It's even got cracks right there. It's essentially based on the idea of no input techniques, aka feedback loops. So I'll go ahead and explain my patch real fast for you. Okay, so the patch is actually pretty straightforward. We have the CRT TV on. We have this modular patch cable going from the headphone output into my passive mult here in my Eurorack box. And it's being multiplied out to two different areas. This one is going into a 0 HP attenuator that I got off of Etsy, and then into my speakers, which is then going via this other patch cable into DI box into the computer. And then the other end here is a splitter between a 3.5mm jack into the video and audio inputs of the television. So now as we turn up the volume here, see, you start hearing something. Now, as I said before, this is basically an oscillator. It's not really gonna get you anything more than these very strong saw and square wave forms. However, what's kind of cool about it is you can almost play a rudimentary little melody just by turning the volume up and down. Now, why would you want to do this? Basically, for one, it's just fun. It's stupid. A second thing is a CRT is actually a really good addition to a no input setup and a feedback loop because of the fact that it has physical cathode rays. I believe it's even a tube. Don't quote me on that. But basically, it gives you a very different kind of tone when you have the TV on versus when it's off. The tubes rattle in different ways. You can even physically hear them. And if I really crank this, I thought I could actually hear them, but I can't. But when you do no input feedback loops through the television, you'll hear it, especially when it's off. And so that's pretty much it for this whole first part. The second part though is gonna be, I wanna run this through some pedals and then show you some real practical things of what you can do with what you've recorded off of this. Okay, so now I've got a little project right here. Everything in this track except for the drums and white noise lifters are made out of the feedback. So I'm gonna let it play through one time real fast and then we'll see exactly what we're working with. Okay, so what exactly is going on here? What I did was I chopped this teeny tiny, like really small little portion of the sample, and then I busted out a tuner, and it was off by about 8 cents to being an A sharp. So tip number one is always going to be, when you're messing with samples like this, especially feedback, where you're not necessarily really tuning it or working in a specific scale, tune it when you get it into the DAW, because it'll be a lot easier to work with. You'll be able to harmonize everything, etc. FL Studio has a free built-in one that kind of looks like this. There's other free options like G-Tune and things like that. There's even free tuner apps if you want to go that way, a little bit more of a DIY approach. But it's super simple, and then you just tune it according to the cents, which is like fractions of an interval or fractions of a note. The other big tip, I will throw this out right now, when you go into FL Studio, at least in the sample manipulation plugin thingamajig, you want to click a little wrench right here and go to group, cut self. You really want to press this because otherwise it'll turn your sample, whether you're playing chords with it or bass lines or melodies, into a jumbled mess, because it's not going to cut off the sample whenever it's re-triggered or when a new note is hit on it. It's just going to constantly play the whole thing through, but in different pitches. So definitely click that as soon as you're done retuning your samples. After that, I mean, the editing chains on this, or effect chains rather, are really not super complicated. For the melody, I've just got this pretty weird looking EQ where I boosted the like highs pretty high and cut off a ton of the lows up to about 182 hertz. And then I put, this is Realm by Native Instruments. It's a free reverb plugin, very huge and large, but as you can kind of hear, I didn't have it go super, super loud. But it is kind of, yeah. It's like really, it's like big, but it's not. And as far as our little chord section here, it's almost the same, with another very odd looking extreme EQ, and Realm again. But before it goes through any of those, it actually goes through this. This is the Ruina by Noise Engineering. You may know Noise Engineering from their Eurorack modules, but they also make some free plugins, and they're actually pretty dang cool. This one in particular, I call it a sound mangler, because ostensibly it's just a distortion, but the different sorts of parameters you have access to here are really good at just making your sound buzzy and gross and destroyed and really mangled and just really cool. Highly recommend. It's another free VST. Go and get it. I think it comes in a bundle with some other synth plugins from Noise Engineering, but those are good as well. Maybe we'll talk about them in another video. And then the bass line. So the bass line here is actually pretty simple. I have them pretty low, down in the 3rd and 2nd octaves. I also want you to keep in mind that even though here on the piano roll it's saying, oh, I'm playing an F, then an A sharp, then a C sharp, these are not accurate because of the fact that the sample, I simply pitch corrected it essentially. Like I just tuned it slightly to what note it was already playing at, so it would be in tune across the keyboard. These are not actually the notes that they say they are. So this one in particular, this clip that I chopped out, which I can show you here, was another pretty short clip. It was like a 1 bar measure of like a whoop, whoop, like that. It registered at like an F that was off by about 18 cents. So I just adjusted it from there. And then I pitched it around here. So really, according to my tuning, if I played this C here, that would actually be an F. So I had to kind of think about it accordingly, going up and down the scale, up and down the keyboard. That is sort of a headache with dealing with feedback samples, and maybe there's an easier way to do it. Please feel free to put in the comments if there is. But yeah, so just keep in mind these are not accurate. You would kind of have to think about it as you went. But again, that one sounds like this. And you can hear those like artifacts on there, but in the track itself, it doesn't really come out too much. Again, another pretty extreme EQ, really scooping the mids hard, pushing up those bass frequencies. And then I have this, yet another freeware VST. This one's a soft clipper, very good for like saturation sounds. You can get some good distortions out of it, but not a ton. But yeah, I mean, I just kind of used it here for some real drive on it. And then really this is more of a theory thing, but on the second part, I decided to throw a sort of top melody harmony with it. So yeah, and then the only other two things here was these little transitions right here. So that one is going to be this little deal right here, actually. Once again, it's just that same chain that the chords, quote unquote, went through. And then I have this other little transition here, which just has a fun little OTT, another freeware plugin. It stands for over the top. It just really crushes and fries anything you put through it. Pretty extreme EQ that gets getting swept. And then just a nice little fruity delay. And so, yeah, that's pretty much it. This specific track right here took maybe about 5 or 10 minutes. But once you've got everything retuned and you've got those different technical things going, it's really a sound design thing at this point. And the best way to get through that is just exploring. But I hope you get the point that the feedback, well, it sounds, pretty experimental, harsh noise, and really crazy when you're first just kind of recording it. There are many, many practical ways, and this is just one way. This is just one example. There are plenty of other ways you can take those recordings and fashion them into usable samples for yourself, or a sample pack that you want to make, or just as a way to get some cool sounding textures or whatever else, or something you can layer in. You have to play around with this. This is not a science. This is an art. But I really, really hope that you enjoyed, and I hope that you can see that you can find practicality in things like the worst oscillator ever made, which is not even an oscillator, it's a TV. I really hope you guys enjoyed this first video. If you have any suggestions in the comments for future things you'd like to see, please put them down in the comments below. I really, really appreciate it. Okay, bye guys.